Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Liz Marden, and today we're going to talk about all things houseplant and pets. And we have a guest with us, Horticultural Consultant Kenny Raybould. Kenny, thank you very much for joining us. I know you have a crazy busy schedule, so thank you for taking the time to talk to us about our plants and pets. So before we begin, do you want to give us a little bit of a lowdown about yourself?
About me? Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be a part of your channel. I think this is such a great topic to talk about, especially at the moment. A little bit about me. My background varies in horticulture, from food production to flower production and high-level sort of floral installs. My time in horticulture, I've worked from everywhere from Leeds Castle to head of horticulture for Convent Garden, and I now reside running a new project in Cornwall at the moment for a hotel called St Melian. So yeah, it's sort of a very vast, broad sort of career so far, but generally anything and anywhere with a plant or a flower.
Oh, amazing. Well, we're very lucky to have you in Devon and Cornwall with us now. So exciting times ahead. So we are here to talk all things plant. So there are so many benefits to having plants in your life, as I'm sure, Kenny, you will absolutely agree.
Mm-hmm.
So plants can boost your mental and physical health, and they can obviously brighten up your day massively. However, with such a wide variety and offer in the shops, it can be such a minefield to know what you can and can't buy, especially with your animals in mind. So without further ado, Kenny, please do share with us your knowledge of plants we need to think about.
I share with you. So I think what I've tried to do here is break this down into just two very simple key components, and especially looking at interior for the time being. And the two things that are very much in vogue at the moment with the houseplant boom, we're all very much more at home with lockdown and the way our world has changed. And where we're filming now on the onset of Christmas, there's going to be a lot more, I think, of this coming indoors because people are bored. We're going to make houses a lot prettier and nicer for Christmas. So cut flowers and houseplants are massive. And I do want to say, first of all, that I do want people to still go out and buy cut flowers and houseplants. Our trade has been really hit. And but be aware of what you're getting if you've got pets. So if we go with cut flowers, and I think very popular cut flowers that we all have all the time are lilies, daffodils and tulips, if we want to take those, tulips being my favorite. But lilies especially, and especially to cats, as you may be aware, and the lily family is quite broad, and that does bring in tulips as well. Every part of it is toxic, and a lot of people, I've got one here, will cut out all the bits in the middle because it drops stuff everywhere. And but that also that can help reduce the air pollutants that get given off. But especially a cat, they if they pass and get that on their fur and lick it off, that is going to make them very, very ill. So I think this is not me saying don't have them. You know your animal, but be aware that if someone does buy them for you, to be mindful that, okay, this is one that is quite potent. So I'm either going to have that in another room that pet's not allowed into, but be mindful if you're handling these, when you need to get rid of them, wash your hands, because if you stroke your cat, it's that transferring. It's very much the same as what we're looking at with COVID. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And then houseplants. So here you've got a picture of a fiddle fig. This is sort of, I believe, is sort of a moderate toxicity to it. But this all sits within a much broader range of plants that are very fashionable at the moment. So the cheese plant, all the philodendrons, and they're great. And we have them in our houses. But especially if you've got that pet that likes to chew plants, these are ones that I would tend to steer away from, because they are going to cause, especially upset stomachs and things that progress and get worse. I find fiddle figs actually really a pain to grow because they just drop their leaves off everywhere.
Yeah, and that's not going to be fun for trying to clear up. If you're already clearing up after your naughty animal, you don't necessarily want extra leaves.
Well, the amount of these fiddle figs I've seen that have got one leaf on the top and the rest is bare because they're too dark, they're too cold, too much sun. They like it quite just right. But this is not saying don't have them. Just be mindful that these areas are ones for concern.
Yeah, sure. And I suppose it probably depends a little bit as well in terms of what pet you've got. So you've mentioned cats, and obviously dogs can eat things, but people that have got budgies and other parakeet type bird species, sometimes you do forget that birds have quite a low tolerance in terms of respiratory issues. So I imagine that, you know, lilies are going to cause, you know, potential breathing issues, and like you said with the fiddle fig there, if they land on it and then chew on those leaves, you know, we don't want that vet bill. We definitely don't want to cause them any issues. So,
no, very much so. I think, you know, I think especially looking at more of our cut flowers and those that produce a lot of, you know, air pollutants in their fragrance, is be aware that especially with birds that they're quite susceptible to, you know, respiratory and digestive problems. With, you know, they in nature can get away, and when you're locking them all in a space with things that they would bypass, you know, out in the forest or in the field,
might
or,
be in their natural environment.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, with house plants, you know, there'll be varying differences for birds. You know, birds will probably be, there's probably a list that they're probably a lot more tolerant to, especially tree type species, but there will be ones they won't be. So it is, you know, there is a world of wealth out on the internet, but it's cross-checking and using your reliable sources, and keep it simple, and just don't try and buy into the fad.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important, because I mean, part of the reason why I asked you to do this is because I just don't really know anything about plants. I'm pretty naff on that front. But even from what we're saying, if you have any doubts, do check with your vet, because they are the professionals in terms of your pet's health. Sorry. So, you know, if any doubt, don't do it, or check with your vet. But with that in mind, because we do want people to buy plants because they are so good for your mental and physical well-being, and they just make your house look gorgeous and smell gorgeous, what plants then, Kenny, would be a better option for us to look at having when we do share our lives with our animals?
Well, I think, you know, if we start with cut flowers again first, as we said, we want people to still be buying. Do not stop. But there is a real good sort of direct link between what is good for us is good for a lot of our animals. Now, there is variations. Must make that very clear. But sunflowers, we can eat sunflowers. We know that we can put sunflowers in birdseed. You know, these are generally quite an inert plant. So if you have got that dog or cat that wants to sit by the vase of flowers, or the dog that just goes, I'm taking that off the table because I can, this is where you're going, do you know what? I've got that animal that's going to do that. This is what I'm going to have to go with, because I don't want my animal getting ill. House plant wise, you know, I think there's a lot more of the, dare I say it, you know, quite old school plants tend to be better. Like, do not get me wrong, things like amaryllis are again another toxic plant to a lot of our pets, but what you can see here is the areca palm, which I've got behind me, my beautiful, I love her, and I find them really easy to look after. You know, they do suffer a little bit from browning tips. You do have to be aware that, you know, if you're watering them, fill up a bottle of water, leave it for a day or so for the chlorines to evaporate, because again, a lot of plants are susceptible to the, you know, the treatments in our water system. But they're generally an inert plant for when it comes to cats and dogs, and especially if you've got, you know, that hippo dog that goes around on the floor biting bits off, or that cat that wants to climb up, you know, because they're dangly, you know that they're going to want to play with it. So it might be a bit shredded, but you know, this is definitely one that I would be advising. You know, you can get these at a good price.
Yeah.
All over the shop.
Sure. Amazing. So we've looked at kind of the ones to maybe avoid, or to at least, you know, be aware of, and you've kindly just described to us, you know, the safer, better options. But we also need to think about placement consideration, so where we're going to put those plants, and you have touched on it a few times now, but just to make it super clear to all of you out there, make sure your animal does have the choice of whether it wants to be near that plant, especially if it's a smelly one. So do make sure they can leave the room or at least be away from it if they want to. We say exactly the same thing about burning incense and about even using pet remedy and things like that. It has to be choice based. Your animal can choose to be there or leave, and that can have a massive impact on mental welfare for your animal having that choice. Keep your room adequately ventilated. No, I am not saying fling your windows open in the middle of winter. No one wants to do that. I'm just saying make sure there is an escape route for your animals. So have a room where the doors are open into other rooms. Make sure it's a big enough room to contain what you need. A big one, keep the plants out of reach. That can be easier said than done if you've got birds or cats in particular, because they do venture everywhere. But think about the placement. So up onto a table or a windowsill where your animals are not allowed, not kind of next to the animal's feeding or drinking place would be ideal. If your animal's behaviour or mood changes in any way once you bring that plant in, then do remove it. We want to make sure they're happy as well as you enjoying it. And a real biggie here, guys, if your animal reacts physically in any way to that plant in a negative way, so any sort of form of allergies, itchy skin, runny eyes, nose, breathing issues, any kind of physical reaction, immediately remove that plant, and please do seek veterinary help to make sure that there hasn't been a poisoning taken place. Perhaps you didn't see the animal eat it or whatever, but please do make sure that you seek help from your vets if you need it. So we want you to buy plants. They're fantastic. We just want you to consider where you put them and perhaps the plant species that you're gonna be sticking in there. So thank you very much, Kenny, for sharing that with us. If people want to find out more about you or about plants or about anything like that, where can they find you? Where can people go to find more about Kenny?
Well, generally either social media or in a field somewhere looking at plants. So I'm on Instagram at Prince_of_plants. I'm also on Twitter at Kenny_Raybould, and the same with Facebook. I generally tend to focus a little bit more on Instagram and Twitter because I find it a bit more user friendly. I tend to just like sharing photos with very brief bits of information because we live in a fast-paced world where none of us want to read anything. And I talk about all sorts of different things, what I'm up to, generally me taking a selfie with a flower somewhere, but ping us a message. I'm always there to try and talk to people.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. And on that note, if anyone does have any plant specific questions, feel free to pop them in the comments box, whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, and either Kenny or myself will try and get around to those and give you the best information that we can. I know, Kenny, you are very busy, so I do really appreciate you coming and talking to us about all things plant and pets. So thank you very much for your time today.
You're very welcome. It's been lovely to be here.
Amazing. Right, guys, that's it for this episode. If you haven't hit that red subscribe button, please do. It really does help me to continue providing free and safe professional advice for your animals. And stay safe. See you guys soon.